Welcome to this series of The Essence of Leadership. Today, I have the amazing Jodi Sleeper-Triplett, and I'm just so excited to have her with us today, willing to share her story about leadership. So, Jodi, I'll start by saying thank you so much for joining us today. And before we jump into the interview, I'm going to share some insights from Jodi's bio so you can see all of the things that Jodi has done in her career. So Jodi Sleeper-Triplett is a master certified coach, trainer, mentor, author, and speaker and leader in the field of neurodiversity coaching. In 1997, after a decade in corporate management, she founded JST Coaching and Training, a coaching and training organization which provides research-based student and neurodiversity coach training programs to individuals and educational institutions with an emphasis on coaching in higher education. Jodi is considered the foremost authority on student and neurodiversity coaching. During her 2-year term as president of the Association of Coach Training Organizations, her platform focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion in coach training, and she continues to forward social justice initiatives. Jodi also provides a strength-based coaching approach to clients of all ages. She's an author of Empowering Youth with ADHD and contributing author of Becoming Self-Determined, Creating Thoughtful Learners in a Standards-Driven, Admissions Friends Culture, and Becoming Self-Determined, Practical Strategies for a Changing World, and a co-editor of From Transactional to Transformational Coaching in Disability Resources. Jodi is the recipient of the 2016 CHAD Hall of Fame Award and 2017 ADHD Coaches Organization Founders Award. So need I say more? Jodi is nothing short of amazing. And I'll just share a quick story. I met Jodi during COVID, and she was one of the catalysts that has me where I am today. I worked at JST for 3 years and I loved every minute of it. It was a time of growth for me in a very challenging time in the world. Not to mention, I'm learning so many new things about coaching, and the entire time, Jodi was always there as a resource and a support system for me in that space. So I'm formally thanking Jodi. I've said it to her in private, but Jodi, I thank you for challenging me in that time to get me to see what I could really be doing. And I appreciate you for that. So thank you.
Well, thank you for accepting the challenge.
So, Jodi, tell me about, I know JST has been around for 27 years. What was the catalyst that made you say, "Hey, I want to start this coach training program"?
Well, I first started coaching, thinking, oh, I'll just help people locally. I was coaching some adults, mostly entrepreneurs, and as I was learning about ADHD and other areas of neurodiversity, and they all said, I wish I had you when I was a kid. I wouldn't be in this place right now if you were here to support me when I was younger. And it really struck me that no matter what type of coaching, no one was focusing on how do we help young people succeed. So I started to do it and do the coaching. And within a couple of years, people were coming to me and saying, I want to do what you do. And that was wonderful to me because it's still hard for me to believe I was the only person doing this anywhere in the world. And it was just, how could that be?
Right.
So that's why I started training. I'm not serving all those who need to be served. And that's the most important thing to me, is to make sure that every child, every teenager has a coach if they need it, if they want it. And so that got me into the training piece, and I never looked back.
Wow. 27 years later. So it's it's interesting you say that. You said you started the training. What was that journey like for you to get to, I'll say, position yourself to be able to open the school?
Um, I had some great mentors who were already doing ADHD coach training. And because, again, no one else was working with the younger population, they were open to whatever I had to bring to the table. Having had a background in behavior management, my understanding of how to work with children was just second nature to me. So I took basic coaching skills and from all of my training, excuse me, and my coaching, and put it together and thought, okay, what do people need to know? Like, what have I been doing these past 2, 3 years? And so I started to document it, and it was almost in a way like a workbook of, well, first you do this, then you do that. And I love to write, so the two together, it was exciting because I was writing something that was going to make a difference. And starting out, once I got through the first, say, 2 cohorts, it was clear that this was something that was good and that people wanted.
Right. And I can tell you just from being at JST, the classes are always full. People are always looking to learn more about about neurodiversity. So with that being said, it makes me wonder, like with so many changes in that space, how are you able to maintain your own professional development to stay abreast of what's happening?
Yeah, that's the tough one. Partly a matter of time
Mhm.
because we are so busy. I'm so grateful for that. But it's about tapping into those who know things that I don't know yet and really keeping my eyes open, whether that is with other coaches, with educators. Um, as you mentioned, I work a lot in higher education with disability service providers. I get a wealth of information from them of, what's coming to your door. So it's less formal education and more about just keeping up with what's going on with research, with journals, as well as having regular conversations with those who are in different spaces focusing on neurodiversity.
Right. Now, and you hit the nail on the head when you said the volume of work. What is the catalyst that keeps you like, okay, I got to read this new book. I got to follow with this new study. I need to make sure I keep, my training modules up to date. Like, how do you find the energy to do all of that?
Um, Sometimes it's challenging. And yet, what I'm very aware of is that as I get older, the trainees get younger. So there's a body of knowledge that's in between the two that I feel it's my duty, it's my responsibility. If someone is coming to me and saying, teach me, help me understand, they need to be taught current information. So part of that is due to the wonderful team that we have,
Mhm.
as you know, because I can say, could you go research this? Or, what do you think about this direction with DEIB? We have a DEIB coordinator looking at research on neurodiversity. How do you understand? How can we better understand and better explain all the different types and how it impacts people?
Right.
Um, so having that team pull things together allows me to avoid that extra research, so to speak, so that I can take a look at it and say, oh, okay, this makes sense to me. This is something I didn't know, or I did know this, but we want to teach it.
Right. Right. And the next question about the trainers getting younger, your team's getting younger, right? As as some people on the team mature in age, what would you say to someone who's looking at you like, man, Jodi just has it. She has everything going so well for her. I want to be like Jodi. Like that's my ultimate goal is to have a similar path to owning my own coach training school, specializing in neurodiversity. Like, what would you say to someone who would be, I guess, a new and emerging leader right now?
Well, the first thing would be to evaluate the current market. What's happening in the world right now? When I started, there was no one doing what I did. Um, so that I was able to sort of create my own path. Um, with that said, that was really difficult because there was nobody to follow.
Right.
Um, so it was whatever I came up with. But I'd say looking at it, and the biggest thing, and I talk to people about this all the time, is bring your true self to the table. I I always say to people, what you see is what you get. This is truly me. If
Right.
I'm not doing work that is changing the world and feeding my heart and soul, then I'm going to stop.
Right.
And so having a passion, it doesn't mean that you have to work on creating a passion. It's, what drives you? What is it about coach training that you want to share with others? Because it's not about us, it's about the other. And that to me is the biggest piece. In some ways, I would say it's about being confident with what you want to do. And I will admit that self-confidence has not always been my strong suit. Um, the drive and the passion gets me over that. So that's where it's that balance between don't be overconfident, believe in yourself, and go after something that means something to you because that will keep you going.
And it's so interesting that you say that, because I remember when I started coaching and facilitating with JST, and neurodiversity was not a lane that I was, well versed in. And I remember saying, Jodi, you sure you want me to do this? Because I'm not very, very versed in this. And I remember not being confident in the first modules. And I studied the material inside out. I read your book. I did all these things, but it wasn't a part of my vocabulary because I was learning. It was new to me. And you and I've had so many conversations, but I remember you saying, Demetra, the team is here to support you. I'm here to support you. I believe you can do this. And you told me to just be me. Like, I don't have to be like anybody else on the team, because I kept saying, Jodi, I don't do neurodiversity. I do leadership. I do this. I do executive coaching. And that is the one lesson that I walked away with, was it doesn't matter what room I'm in. Uh, be me, be authentically me, bring all of my gifts and talents to this place, and they will be appreciated. And the other one was the comparison thing. And there's so many people that do that, Jodi, and I'm quite sure you witnessed it when you were working in higher education. People comparing their journey. Oh, I didn't do as well as so and so, but I have ADHD, so that's why I didn't do this thing. Like, the comparison piece can stifle people's dreams and their journey. And I'm glad you hit on that, saying that, younger people, and how you take time to tell them to be authentically them, how you share your journey. When you say there was no path, I had to blaze my own trail, so to speak. I think it gives people the freedom to be them in those uncomfortable places, if that makes sense.
It does. And one thing that I want to add, it just sparked it for me, is I'm not afraid of competition because I don't see it as competition.
Right.
What I provide is not the same as the next person and the next person. And everyone is at choice. They get to go where they want to go. If they want to train with us, fine. I have sent many people away saying it doesn't sound, it sounds like what you're looking for is something else.
Right.
And I don't want us to take your money, waste your time coming into this and then finding out this isn't what I want.
Right.
And that's appreciated, but it's also the way that we grow coaches who want to do the good work that we teach.
Right. And I was going to ask you, what is it that you feel inspires others? And I think one of the things is what you just said, that power of choice, right? We all have a choice in every situation, and letting people know JST, I think it's a great program, but it may not be the program for you. It's okay if it's not. And being comfortable enough in your space to say that means, I think it speaks volumes, because we're not coming from a place of a lack mindset. It's enough people out there for everyone to coach, to train. And as long as we have that mindset, competition doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this now. I'm quite sure you've had setbacks on your journey. If you don't mind sharing a little bit of one of your setbacks and how you were able to be resilient in that space.
From a business perspective, to start with that, I find that sometimes partnering with people doesn't go well.
Okay.
It's not that there's anything wrong with either person or organization, but as a leader, my leadership style, and my core of what's right and wrong that drives me, I've had situations where we can't work together anymore. This isn't going to work for me, and it's a challenge. And again, it's not that there's something wrong with the other party. It's more that now when I sit back and think about it, I need to remember that even though it was a setback and, oh, I need to start or do something different because now I don't have this area of expertise or marketing readily available. It's like, okay, what do I have to do to create it?
Right.
I've done it before, I can do it again. Resilience is something that I have learned from the time I was little. Adversity hits people at all different times in their lives. Mine just happens to keep, going at intervals that are a little too quick, having lost, 3 family members in the space of 6 years, including my own son. And even when he was struggling, I knew, having heard it from him, but also knowing that the last thing he wanted was to be the cause of anything that disrupted the good work that I was doing.
Right.
And that was a blessing to have a grown child say, I'm so proud of what you do. And today, I keep going. He's been gone for 9 years. And it's a situation where when I stop and think, I don't know if I can do it, it's like, yes, you can do it. And that voice in my head. And the other piece, Demetra, is that as the years go by and I reflect on the changes and the positive responses from people who have received coaching and received training, it's heartwarming. And I have a client that I started working with when he was a teenager, and he's now close to 40. And he came back to me after 20 years and said, hey, can we connect? I mean, it's just what a gift to me. And he thinks I'm a gift to him. So it's just all of that reminds me that I'm in the right place. And even though there are times when I just want to curl up in a ball,
Right.
I'm not going to do it. And business wise, I've also learned to stop worrying about whether a class will fill or whether or not I will get paid one way or another, because it all comes from being in a place of gratitude and openness, and definitely working on resilience every single day.
Thank you for sharing that. And I will tell you, the worrying part can be challenging, because we like to know what's going to happen. That's why we study and position ourselves to be, quote unquote, experts in our space, right? Like, we want to keep studying and keep being able to impact the world around us. But when there's that unknown facet that shows up for you, it's not a comfortable space to be in. And as you know, there's so much happening in the economy with people losing their jobs and so forth. And Jodi, in my space, I've been working with a lot of people in leadership roles who are neurodiverse. And some of them, they don't know when their roles are ending. All they know is that there's a reorg happening. And,
Mhm.
as you know from being in the neurodiverse space, that can put people in a whirlwind because they're trying to plan, but what can you plan for? You don't know when it's happening, and then you get caught in the details. So what you said, I think will hit home with them is worrying doesn't help. And granted, there's strategies to position to work on, to better organize your life, to help you plan a little bit more efficiently for those things. But worrying, it doesn't do anything but give you more anxiety.
Exactly. And thinking of from a place of adversity, of when you're in that space, think about how can I use my energy to learn more about the situation that I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not a good situation, for example, how will I do it differently next time? And
Right.
really looking, as you know, as a coach, helping them to see that they can start moving forward, even if they're sort of in limbo and they don't know what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
um, to see that there are opportunities. And it's hard to do because when the brain is racing
Mm-hmm.
and there's fear, everybody freezes. So you're absolutely right.
That's been happening. And that makes me more grateful for my time at JST. Because now when I'm talking to people in these roles and they'll say, I just found out that I have ADHD. And it's more like a whisper. And it's just us. And I usually say, is this a secret? Like I whisper back and they'll laugh. I'm like, well, I didn't want anybody to know. Well, it's just us here. So we can talk freely about how you believe this is impacting your life and what we can do to help you, better position yourself. And it's just a very interesting conversation. And again, I'm grateful that I'm comfortable with having those conversations as a result of working with you. Um, which leads me to the next question I wanted to ask. For those new and emerging leaders or new coaches, right, that are joining your team or the ones that you meet in the different organizations, what would you say to them as they embark upon like their initial steps in the journey?
Um, One of my early lessons is you don't need to spend money and have it all when you're starting out. Start small, work on what's most important to you. And it's not about the stuff, the things. Um, and as far as knowledge and being able to work into a leadership role, I went through this in the corporate world. And it was basically be in a place where you're open to feedback. Um, get to know the people around you. If you are leading a team, you want to get to know them. It's not just about, oh, they have this skill, so we'll have a conversation about the skill. And neurodiversity comes in. I've worked with organizations who've said, we understand now that we are missing a number of people, percentage of our employees, because we don't understand. And they get dismissed for being late, for forgetting to do something, for losing focus in a meeting, etc. And so by understanding the people around you and giving them a safe space, I mean, it's the core of coaching. But for me, it's it's okay, just like you said with your client. So I think for those who are working towards success, and they will get there, it's about being authentic and learning some of the skills. I mean, there's some great books out there about how to handle conversations, some of the basics that have been around for a long time. It doesn't have to be a new and wonderful, fancy way of connecting. All of that is happening in the world of AI and with everything that's going on. However, it's the core. It's the core of how do you communicate with people, and asking yourself, how do I become comfortable doing that? Because when you're not comfortable, other people know that you're not comfortable, and
Right.
that makes it hard for them to connect.
Right. Now, this is such a great segue to my next question. When you talk about, success, right? Jodi, how do you measure success? And let me give you a little insight on why I asked that question. Because you said it's not about the money. And in working with you, I know that's not what it is. And you show up every day. You've done some amazing things with different clients and different organizations. And yes, you could charge them so much more money, but you didn't. So how do you measure success? Like and I'll say for yourself, for Jodi, as well as for JST.
For me, in some ways, they're one and the same, is that success is measured by sort of the return on my investment. And my investment isn't money, the investment is me. The responses, being able to, as I always tell students at the end of one of our training cohorts, that they are going to be blooming and blossoming as flowers. So what we do at JST is plant the seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm planting seeds and they come to fruition, and they can go out there and then again plant more seeds, work with more people, help more young people, help the world understand that we're not all the same, and that's absolutely okay. That is what is success to me, knowing that I'm making a difference. When I don't hear anything and I just feel like, oh, I wonder if that went well, that that can occupy my mind. And then I remember, I'm sure that some nugget hit, and maybe it won't click now, but it'll click later. And it always does.
Okay.
So that fulfills me personally and professionally, because it goes back to what we started talking about. I can just be myself and share my passion, and it all works. It's like not a secret, but at the same time, sometimes I scratch my head and wonder, how did I get here? I'm
Right.
so, so grateful.
Right. And you mentioned that you worked with this guy when he was a teenager and now he's an adult. I know you get emails or follow-ups like that on a regular basis. What is that like for you to say, man, I met this person when they were 20, they were in college? Like, what is that like for you to receive those emails or phone calls or however it is that they're contacting you?
It it's so heartwarming, and it reminds me that all the bumps that I've had in life as well as in business are worth it, almost all. And that being able to impact the lives. I've had parents write to me and say, hey, my child is in law school or is married and is doing this and that, and wouldn't be that way if it weren't for you. And I'm thinking, wow, that's huge.
Right.
I don't think of it that way. So it's a gift. And as I said, it does ground me. When I'm a little shaky, I think about those people, and that, yeah, I did make a difference, and I can keep making a difference, even when I get tired after 27 years, that it's about continuing to do this with additional support as our team grows and I grow.
And thank you for saying that in such a amazing way, because when I'm speaking to new coaches at times or people who are new in leadership roles, they're looking for a different type of, I don't know if it's a response or a way to measure success. And everything you talked about just now is about impact. It comes from a selfless place. And I wish others, when you're striving to climb that ladder, right, of what you deem to be success, if we got outside of ourselves, right, and really looked at the overall assignment, because that's pretty much what you've been talking about today. Your assignment here was to, or it is to help people in the neurodiverse community and to bring some awareness, of course, teach people about it so people can better position themselves. I think we could have better leaders and better coaches, right? If we took the uh the mirror from looking at us to actually turning it the other way to see how people respond to what we're giving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And I guess one of my last questions would be, you mentioned earlier that you do a lot of DEIB work in the coaching space. How important do you think that work is, to, I guess, new and emerging leaders who could be coaches, right? Sometimes they're one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
So how important do you think it is?
I think DEIB, social justice, however one wants to frame it, is critical. We cannot move our country, our world forward with blinders on. And I remember years ago just going through, when I go to coaching conferences, it was a sea of white. And every time I bring it up, people are like, it doesn't impact me. Well, that just made me angry. So anger and frustration for me is like, okay, you just lit the fire again. So it's about looking at all the opportunities that other people can bring to you. If you want to be successful and you don't understand others, or at least have cultural humility and say, I want to learn, but I don't know what I don't know, share with me, whether it's neurodiversity, um, race, culture, class. I mean, there's so much going on. And the other part of it too is that we in coaches around the world, although there are pockets that try, we're not reaching the underserved population. And part of that is because people don't know what that is.
Right.
So that to me is, if you want to be successful, you have to embrace differences and you have to learn and be humble.
And I know when I started at JST, it was during COVID. And social justice was very prevalent during that time. The George Floyd and all of those things were going on. And I remember you hosting that DEIB course, and some people weren't so happy with it. You had the necessary conversations, and we proceeded to host the course, and it's still running today. So hats off to you for being that beacon of light in those places and continuing to push forward. I think it speaks volumes, especially with everything that's happening now in the world around DEIB. So definitely thank you for that. And my last question is, if someone wants to learn more about Jodi and JST, where can they go find that information? And who knows? I'm quite sure there's tons of people with questions about neurodiversity and learning more about some of the things that you shared today.
Well, they can Google me, which I'm always surprised at how much comes up, but jstcoachtraining.com. And everything is on there. And if someone has a question, they can just pop me a note. Happy to connect, answer. And we have a great team that can do that too.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm telling you guys, go to the website. There's tons of information out there. You can find a wealth of information about the training programs, the mentor coaching they have, the DEIB programs they have, as well as some programs they have for higher ed. It is a wealth of information out there. So definitely Google Jodi, go check out JST Coach Training Program. And if you have any questions, definitely go through the website. Jodi's team is amazing. And maybe I'm a little biased because I used to be on the team. but they are amazing people to work with. So definitely check that out. And lastly, Jodi, thank you so much for allowing me this time to interview you and to glean additional insights.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to have this conversation.